The day Earth changed forever started like any other at the Remote Object Tracking Station in outback Australia. Tom Walker was doing his usual morning checks when the radar picked up something strange. At first, he thought it was just another piece of space junk falling from orbit. They got a lot of those, but this one was moving wrong, almost like it was trying to slow down. "Hey Bill, come look at this," Tom called to his partner, pointing at the blinking dot on his screen. "Ever seen anything move like that?" Before Bill could answer, the dot changed direction again, and then the entire building shook. A deep boom echoed across the desert, and through the station's windows, they saw a trail of smoke rising from behind the red dunes. Tom grabbed the emergency kit, force of habit from his mining rescue days, and jumped into the station's rugged truck. The smoke led him about 15 kilometers into the desert. What he found there would change human history forever. It wasn't a satellite. It wasn't a plane. Half buried in the red sand was a silver ship about the size of a small house, its hull still hot from entry. But that wasn't the strangest part. The strangest part was watching 3 tall, blue-skinned figures in shimmering suits stumbling away from it. Tom's first instinct was to run. His second instinct was to help. The old rescue worker in him won out. "Hey," he called out, stepping forward with his hands raised. "You folks need help." The aliens, because that's what they had to be, jumped at his voice. They spoke in strange clicking sounds, pointing at him with what looked like fancy metal sticks. Tom kept his hands up, and his voice calm. "Easy there," he said, taking slow steps. "I'm not going to hurt you." One of the aliens, taller than the others, made a series of rapid clicks. A small box on its belt hummed, and then words came out in broken English. "Danger zone. You must leave. Ship leak toxic death metal." Tom looked at the ship. A dark liquid was indeed dripping from its side. He walked closer to look, ignoring the alien's frantic clicking. "That's just lead," he said, recognition dawning on his face. He'd seen enough of it in his mining days. "Your fuel tank's cracked. Not great, but not the end of the world." The alien's clicking reached a fever pitch when Tom walked right up to the leaking metal. The translator box spat out, "Stop. We'll die. Poison." Tom looked at his hands, then back at the aliens. Understanding slowly dawned on him. "Wait, you mean you folks can't touch lead? At all?" The lead alien, Tom had to smile at that thought, stepped forward cautiously. "Your species handles death metal with bare skin." "Impossible." Tom laughed. "Mate, half the old pipes in my house are made of this stuff. Sure, we try not to eat it, but it's not going to kill us from just touching it." The aliens huddled together, their clicking conversation too fast for the translator to keep up. Finally, the tall one turned back to Tom. "We are traders. Ship damaged. Need repair, but cannot touch. Lead. Cannot approach engine." Tom scratched his chin, looking at the ship. "Well, you're in luck. Before I took this watching the sky job, I spent 20 years in mining and metal work. If you can tell me what goes where, I can probably help fix your ship." The alien's skin changed color slightly, turning a deeper blue that Tom would later learn meant surprise and relief. They introduced themselves, names Tom couldn't hope to pronounce, and explained they were part of something called the Galactic Trade Federation. Over the next 3 days, Tom helped them repair their ship, handling the lead components they couldn't touch. In return, they told him about the galaxy, about thousands of species trading among the stars, and about how almost none of them could handle heavy metals the way humans could. When they finally left, the lead alien handed Tom a small device. For communication, it said through the translator, "Your people. Interesting. Very interesting. We will return." Tom watched their ship disappear into the sky, the small device heavy in his pocket. He looked down at his hands, still smudged with lead from the repairs, and laughed. "Just wait until I try to explain this in my incident report," he said to himself, heading back to his truck. Just wait until everyone finds out what we've been throwing away is worth more than gold to them. He had no way of knowing that this was just the beginning. Humanity's journey to the stars would start not with a grand diplomatic mission or a show of force, but with a simple repair job in the middle of nowhere, all thanks to humanity's strange resistance to what the rest of the galaxy considered a deadly poison. 3 months after the aliens left, Tom Walker found himself in a room full of serious-looking people in expensive suits. The small communication device the aliens had given him sat in the middle of a large table, surrounded by government officials, scientists, and business leaders from around the world. "And you're absolutely certain," they said, lead was valuable to them?" asked Mrs. White, the head of the World Economic Council. She had flown in from London just for this meeting. Tom nodded for what felt like the 100th time. "Yes, Mom. They couldn't even touch the stuff. Said it was deadly poison to most species out there." Just then, the device lit up with a soft blue glow. The room fell silent as a holographic image appeared above it, showing the same alien captain Tom had helped. The translator kicked in, converting the clicks into clear English. "Greetings, humans of Earth. As promised, we have returned. Our trade federation is very interested in your world." The alien explained how lead, which humans had been using for plumbing and batteries for centuries, was one of the rarest and most valuable materials in the galaxy. Most species had evolved on worlds where heavy metals were uncommon. Even tiny amounts of lead could kill them instantly. "Your natural resistance to this metal makes you unique," the alien captain said, "and your planet's abundant lead deposits make you potentially very wealthy." Mrs. White leaned forward. "How wealthy, exactly?" The alien displayed some numbers that made everyone in the room gasp. The lead in a single old car battery was worth more than a luxury house in alien currency. Earth's total lead deposits were worth more than most planets' entire economies. However, the alien added, "We have concerns. Your current mining methods are primitive, unsafe for off-world transport." That's when Joe Miller spoke up. He wasn't supposed to be in the meeting. He was just a mining engineer who happened to be fixing the building's air conditioning that day. But he had stayed to listen, and now he couldn't keep quiet. "What if we could solve that?" he asked, stepping forward despite the glares from security. "I've been working on a new extraction system. Clean, efficient, and it could be modified for space transport." The alien's skin rippled with interest. What Tom now knew was their version of raising eyebrows. "Show us." Over the next hour, Joe sketched out his ideas on the conference room whiteboard. The aliens watched through the hologram, occasionally making suggestions about space safety protocols. By the end, both humans and aliens were excited about the possibilities. Within weeks, the United Earth Mining Corporation, UEMC, was formed. Every nation contributed their best engineers, scientists, and resources. Old lead mines were reopened with new advanced technology. The first contracts with alien traders were signed. The changes came fast after that. The aliens helped Earth build its first space station, specifically designed for safe lead handling and transport. They called it Trading Post Alpha, and it became the busiest trading hub in this part of the galaxy. Joe's new mining system was just the beginning. Humans started developing all sorts of new technologies for handling, processing, and transporting lead safely. Their natural resistance to the metal meant they could work with it in ways no other species could, giving Earth a monopoly on the trade. Mrs. White stood at the observation window of Trading Post Alpha 6 months later, watching alien ships dock to trade for Earth's toxic treasure. Below her, teams of human workers in special suits moved lead containers with casual ease, while alien observers stayed safely behind thick barriers. "Did you ever imagine this?" she asked Tom, who had become Earth's unofficial alien relations expert. "That our pollution would become our greatest asset?" Tom shook his head, smiling as he watched another alien ship arrive. "No, Mom. But I'll tell you what I do imagine. This is just the beginning." He was right. As more alien species learned about Earth's lead deposits and humanity's unique ability to handle them, the galaxy's eyes turned toward the small blue planet. Humanity wasn't just entering the galactic community. They were about to revolutionize it. And it all started because some alien traders had the bad luck to crash land with a leaky engine, and the good luck to meet a helpful human who wasn't afraid to get his hands dirty. 1 year into Earth's galactic trade adventure, a discovery in Joe Miller's garage would change everything again. The former mining engineer, now head of research at UEMC, was tinkering with an old car battery late one night when he had an idea. If aliens can't handle lead, he muttered to himself, wiping grease from his hands, then they probably can't make proper containment vessels either. The next morning, he burst into Tom Walker's office at Trading Post Alpha. Tom had just finished a call with some blue-skinned traders about their latest shipment. "We've been thinking about this all wrong," Joe said, spreading blueprints across Tom's desk. "We shouldn't just be selling them raw lead. We should be selling them what we've spent centuries learning how to make with it." Tom looked at the drawings. "Lead-lined containers." "Exactly." Joe pointed to his designs. "Think about it. These aliens have incredibly dangerous materials they need to store and transport, but they can't work with the best radiation-blocking metal in the universe. We can." The idea spread like wildfire. Within months, Earth's factories were producing more than just raw lead. They were making specialized containers, shields, and safety equipment that the rest of the galaxy desperately needed, but could never manufacture themselves. Trading Post Alpha expanded to include massive manufacturing facilities. Humans in protective suits worked around the clock, shaping lead into products that alien civilizations would pay fortunes to own. Earth became known as the Forge, the only place in the galaxy where lead could be safely processed and shaped. But not everyone was happy about Earth's growing influence. At a galactic trade conference, an alien diplomat from a species that looked like tall, purple praying mantises raised concerns. "The humans are monopolizing crucial safety technology," the diplomat clicked through their translator. "This is dangerous for galactic stability." That's when Anna Lee, a former safety inspector turned UEMC representative, stepped up to speak. She had spent the last 6 months studying alien safety protocols and had found them seriously lacking. "With all due respect," she said, standing confidently before the gathered aliens, "before we started making these containers, you were shipping radioactive materials in vessels that would crack if hit by a small meteor. We're not just selling products. We're making the galaxy safer for everyone." To prove her point, she ordered a demonstration. In a controlled environment, they tested both alien containers and human-made lead-lined ones against various hazards. The results were clear. Earth's products were far superior. The mantis-like diplomat's antenna drooped in embarrassment as their own container failed every test, while the human-made one remained intact. "Perhaps," they admitted, "we have been too quick to judge." Back on Earth, factories that had once made car batteries were now producing spacecraft components. Old lead mines became training grounds for space engineers. Every week, new applications for humanity's unique ability to handle lead were discovered. Joe became known as the Lead King, the first human to become a billionaire in galactic credits. But he never forgot his roots. He turned his old garage into a museum, where the revolution began, as the sign said. One day, as Tom was showing a group of alien traders through the new manufacturing center in Australia, one of them asked him a question that made him pause. "Why do you think your species developed this resistance to lead?" Tom looked out over the facility, where humans in protective suits worked alongside alien machinery, creating products that would travel to the farthest reaches of space. "Maybe," he said with a smile, "the universe knew we'd need it. Or maybe we're just too stubborn to let a little toxic metal stop us." The alien's translator crackled with what sounded like laughter. "Perhaps that is why we need you humans so much. You see problems as opportunities." As another ship full of lead-lined containers launched toward the stars, Tom couldn't help but agree. Humanity had taken what other species saw as a deadly poison and turned it into a revolution. They weren't just traders anymore. They were becoming the engineers of the galaxy's future. And this was still just the beginning. 2 years into Earth's golden age of lead trading, disaster struck. The emergency alarm at Trading Post Alpha blared at 3 a.m. Earth time, waking Tom Walker from his sleep. Red lights flashed throughout the station as he rushed to the control room. "What's happening?" he asked, finding Joe Miller already there, staring at a holographic display with a grim face. "The Blue Star Corporation tried to make artificial lead," Joe said, pointing to a pulsing red dot in the map of nearby space. "Their experiment went wrong. Very wrong." The Blue Star Corporation was one of the largest alien business groups, and they had never accepted Earth's monopoly on lead processing. Their failed experiment had created a toxic cloud that was spreading through an entire sector of space, threatening 3 major trade routes and 4 populated worlds. "How bad is it?" Tom asked, though he could guess from Joe's expression. "Bad enough that they're asking for our help," Joe replied. "No one else can even get close to that mess without dying instantly." Within hours, Earth's best hazmat specialists were gathering at Trading Post Alpha. Kate Stone, who had spent 15 years cleaning up nuclear accidents on Earth, took charge of the response team. "Listen up," she said to the gathered humans, all wearing Earth's newest spacesuits. "This is what we've trained for. Yes, it's bigger than anything we've handled before, but the principles are the same. We go in, we contain it, we clean it up." The alien observers watched in amazement as the human teams prepped their equipment. To them, even standing near the contaminated zone meant death. But these humans were planning to fly right into it. Kate's team launched in specially designed ships, their hulls lined with the thickest lead shielding ever made. As they approached the toxic cloud, their sensors went crazy. "These readings are off the charts," Kate's second-in-command reported. "The aliens really messed up this time." Kate nodded, checking her suit's seals one last time. "Well, then it's a good thing they've got us to clean up their mess." For the next 72 hours, human teams worked in shifts, using modified versions of Earth's industrial cleanup techniques to contain and neutralize the toxic cloud. Their suits, designed to handle the worst nuclear disasters on Earth, were pushed to their limits. Alien news networks broadcast the operation across the galaxy. Billions of alien beings watched in awe as these strange creatures from a heavy metal world faced down a disaster that would have killed any other species instantly. At one point, Kate's ship's shielding cracked. Instead of retreating, she patched it by hand, working in the contaminated space with only her suit for protection. The aliens watching the feed couldn't believe their eyes. "How?" One alien reporter clicked rapidly. "How can they survive this?" Tom, watching from Trading Post Alpha, just smiled. "Because we have to," he said simply. "Someone has to clean up this mess." Finally, after 3 days of non-stop work, Kate's team succeeded. The toxic cloud was contained and neutralized. 4 worlds and countless lives had been saved, all because humans could do what no other species could. When Kate's team returned to Trading Post Alpha, they were met with a hero's welcome. Alien representatives from across the galaxy had gathered to thank them. The Blue Star Corporation publicly apologized and agreed to pay Earth handsomely for the cleanup operation. But more importantly, the galaxy's view of humanity changed that day. They weren't just lead dealers anymore. They were the ones you called when everything went wrong, when the disaster was too deadly for anyone else to handle. "You know what this means, don't you?" Joe said to Tom as they watched the celebration. "Every major facility in the galaxy is going to want human hazmat teams on standby now." Tom nodded, watching Kate and her team receiving medals from grateful alien diplomats. "We're not just selling them lead anymore," he said. "We're selling them safety, peace of mind." And across the galaxy, beings of all species slept a little better that night, knowing that if disaster struck, the humans would come to help. The species that could walk through poison had become the galaxy's guardians. 3 months after the toxic cloud crisis, Tom Walker found himself in a very different kind of meeting. Instead of the dusty Outback station where this all began, he now stood in the gleaming halls of the Galactic Council itself. The massive chamber was filled with representatives from hundreds of alien species. The council leader, a tall being that looked like a glowing jellyfish, floated at the center of the chamber. "We are here to discuss Earth's petition for full council membership," it announced through the universal translator. In the Earth section, Tom sat between Kate Stone, now famous for her toxic cloud cleanup, and Joe Miller, the Lid King. They were part of Earth's first official delegation to the council. "Many say it is too soon," the council leader continued. "Earth has only been part of galactic society for 3 years. That's when a small, gray-skinned alien stood up. Tom recognized him as one of the traders whose ship he'd helped fix during first contact. "Too soon," the alien clicked excitedly. "They have done more in 3 years than many species do in 3 centuries. Holograms appeared around the chamber, showing scenes from the past 3 years. Humans handling lead safely, building containment vessels, cleaning up disasters that would kill any other species. The gray alien continued. "They took what we saw as a deadly poison and built an industry around it. They turned their planet's curse into a blessing for all." Other aliens began to speak up. A representative from one of the worlds saved during the toxic cloud crisis rose. "My people live because humans were willing to risk their lives to save us. They ask for nothing in return except the chance to help more." But not everyone was convinced. A reptilian creature hissed. "They are too different, too aggressive, too willing to take risks." That's when Kate Stone stood up. She wasn't supposed to speak. She wasn't even supposed to be there. But after facing down a toxic space cloud, facing a room of politicians didn't scare her. "Yes, we are different," she said, her voice clear and strong. "We evolved on a world that would kill most of you instantly. We learned to survive by handling materials you can't touch. But we've used that ability to help, to protect, to make the galaxy safer for everyone." She gestured to the team members who had worked with her during the crisis. "We risk our lives not because we're reckless, but because we can help when no one else can. Isn't that what the council is supposed to be about? Species working together, each contributing their unique strengths." The chamber fell silent. Even the reptilian alien seemed to be thinking carefully about her words. Joe Miller stood next to her. "We're not asking for special treatment," he added. "We're asking for the chance to do more, to help more, to be full partners in building a safer galaxy." The council leader's glow pulsed thoughtfully. After what seemed like hours, it spoke. "Let us vote." One by one, the representatives cast their votes. Tom held his breath as the numbers climbed. They needed 2/3 to gain membership. As the final votes were counted, the chamber erupted in a chorus of clicks, whistles, and other alien sounds of approval. Earth was in. Later, at the celebration in Trading Post Alpha, Tom stood with Kate and Joe, watching ships from across the galaxy dock with Earth's first space station. "Remember when this all started?" Tom asked, smiling at the memory of that crashed ship in the Outback. "Who would have thought fixing a leaky engine would lead to this?" Joe raised his glass. "To the lead dealers." "To the lead dealers," everyone echoed, humans and aliens alike. As the celebration continued, news screens showed the Earth's flag being raised at the Galactic Council headquarters. Humanity had done it. In just 3 years, they had gone from an unknown species to full council members. Their unique ability to handle lead had opened the door, but it was their willingness to help others that had truly won them their place among the stars. And this was still just the beginning of their story. Not everyone was happy about Earth's rise to power. 6 months after joining the Galactic Council, humanity faced its greatest challenge yet. The warning came from an unexpected source. One of the mantis-like aliens who had once opposed Earth's lead monopoly burst into Tom Walker's office at Trading Post Alpha, their antenna twitching with anxiety. "They're coming," The alien clicked rapidly. The purists. They say Earth's influence has grown too strong. They plan to destroy your lit minds. Tom immediately called an emergency meeting. Within an hour, Kate Stone, Joe Miller, and Earth's military commander, Jack Steele, gathered around his desk. The purists are a radical group, the Mantis alien explained. They believe space should belong only to species that evolved for it. They see Earth's special abilities as an abomination. How serious is this threat? Commander Steele asked, his weathered face stern. The answer came sooner than expected. Alarms blared throughout the station. On the main screen, dozens of alien ships appeared, dropping out of faster-than-light travel. They're using antimatter weapons, Joe said, reading the sensors. If those hit our minds. They won't, Commander Steele interrupted. He pressed a button on his uniform. All Earth defense ships, launch now. Protect the minds at all costs. What the purists didn't know was that Earth had been preparing for something like this. Every lead shipment in the past 6 months had included materials for hidden defense platforms. Every human ship had been equipped with special lead line shields. The battle that followed would be talked about for generations. The purist ships fired their antimatter weapons, expecting to easily destroy Earth's facilities. Instead, their shots were absorbed by lead-enhanced shields. They don't understand, Kate said, watching from the command center. We've been handling their worst weapons for centuries. Radiation. We built nuclear power plants. Antimatter. We learned to contain it. Everything they throw at us, we've already dealt with back home. Commander Steele coordinated the defense from Trading Post Alpha. Human ships, smaller but more maneuverable, danced between the larger purist vessels. Their lead-lined hulls shrugged off radiation attacks that would have vaporized any other species ships. Sir, a young officer called out, 3 purist ships are heading for the Sydney mining complex. That's when Kate had an idea. The containment field we used for the toxic cloud, she said quickly. We can modify it. Turn their weapons against them. Joe's eyes lit up. The lead particles would reflect their antimatter beams back at them. They worked frantically, reprogramming the defense systems. When the purist ships fired on Sydney, they found their shots bouncing back at them, their own weapons becoming their undoing. The battle lasted less than 6 hours. The purist fleet, expecting an easy victory over primitive humans, found themselves outmaneuvered and outthought. Their supposed advantages meant nothing against humans who had spent generations working with materials other species considered too dangerous to touch. When it was over, the purist ships were either captured or retreating. But humanity's victory had an unexpected effect. The battle had been broadcast across galactic news networks. Species that had feared Earth's rising power now saw humans using that power to protect others. In the aftermath, Tom stood with his friends in the observation deck, watching repair crews fix the minor damage to Trading Post Alpha. You know what this means, don't you? Joe asked. No one will doubt our place in the galaxy now. Kate nodded. We proved we're not just good at handling dangerous materials. We're good at protecting people from them too. Commander Steele smiled slightly. The purists thought our adaptation to lead made us monsters. Instead, it made us guardians. Tom looked out at the stars, thinking about how far they'd come from that first crashed ship in the outback. Well, he said, I guess this makes it official. Earth isn't just part of the galactic community anymore. We're its defenders. As if to emphasize his point, a group of alien ships appeared, escorting damaged vessels to Earth for repairs. The species that had once been feared for their ability to handle poison had become the ones everyone trusted to keep them safe. The lead dealers had become the galaxy's protectors, and the stars were safer for it. 5 years after the day Tom Walker first helped fix a crashed alien ship in the Australian outback, he stood in the grand chamber of the Galactic Council once again. This time, though, everything was different. The chamber was packed with representatives from every known species. Today was historic. The council was about to elect its first human president. "Look at how far we've come," Joe Miller whispered from beside him. The once simple mining engineer now represented Earth's industrial sector on the council. Kate Stone, sitting on Tom's other side, smiled. From toxic world to galactic leadership in 5 years. Not bad for a bunch of lead dealers. The candidate for president was Maria Ross, Earth's chief diplomat. She had started as a translator during the early trading days and had risen through the ranks by helping build bridges between species. Now she stood before the council, ready to make history. "Fellow beings of the galaxy," Maria began her speech, her words translated into 100 different languages. 5 years ago, most of you had never heard of Earth. Some called us primitive. Others called us dangerous. You feared our ability to handle materials that would kill most species instantly. She paused, looking around the chamber. But what you saw as our greatest flaw became our greatest gift to the galaxy. We didn't just sell you lead. We showed you how differences can become strengths. How one species' poison can become another's tool for building a better future. The chamber erupted in approval. Even the mantis-like aliens, who had once opposed Earth's rise, clicked their approval. Their representatives now wore lead-lined containers made by human craftsmen, allowing them to safely carry materials they never could before. As the voting began, Tom thought back to all that had happened. Trading post-alpha had grown into a massive space city, where humans and aliens worked side by side. Earth's lead mines had become universities, teaching other species how to safely work with materials they once feared. The purists who had attacked Earth were now a cautionary tale, taught to children of all species about the dangers of fear and prejudice. The votes were counted. Maria Ross had won by the largest margin in council history. As she took her oath of office, a special ceremony began. Representatives from every world Earth had helped came forward. The aliens whose ship Tom had fixed. The worlds Kate had saved from the toxic cloud. The species protected during the purist attack. Each brought a small piece of their home worlds. These pieces were forged together in a special lead-lined container, a symbol of how humanity's unique ability had united the galaxy. The container would stand in the council chamber forever, reminding future generations of how the lead dealers changed history. After the ceremony, Tom and his friends gathered in a quiet corner of the chamber. Commander Steele, now head of the Galactic Defense Force, joined them. "Did you ever imagine this?" Tom asked, looking at the celebration around them. "When you were fixing the crashed ship, did you think it would lead to all this?" "Never," Kate laughed. "I was just trying to clean up toxic spills. And I was just trying to make better mining equipment," Joe added. Commander Steele smiled, something he did more often these days. "That's why it worked. We weren't trying to conquer the galaxy. We just wanted to help." They watched as President Ross began her first meetings, already working to build new connections between worlds. Human ships patrolled trade routes, keeping them safe. Earth's factories produced tools that made life better for every species. And in schools across the galaxy, young beings learned about the strange creatures from a heavy metal world who turned their greatest weakness into everyone's strength. "You know what?" Tom said, raising his glass. "I think this is still just the beginning." His friends raised their glasses too, human and alien alike. "To the lead dealers," they said together. "To the future." And somewhere in the Australian outback, a small plaque marked the spot where it all began, where a simple act of kindness between species changed the galaxy forever.